You can talk to me then. They know it.
But we need to know it all again. And there might be something I forgot.
You know when you meet like someone really amazing and you think that you just want to be like them and you just aspire to have the knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, gosh, I could talk to that person forever. I remember early on meeting so many people and you hear the same thing over and over and over again. I forgot more than I've ever known.
Yeah.
You know? It's so true.
Yeah.
When you start digging into, whatever you're passionate about, whether it be horse training or chiropractic or health or working on cars. Yeah, I was talking to this old-time mechanic in here and you could just see the gears going in his head, and the guy's probably worked on 5,000 cars, and just as you keep digging, he keeps coming out with more and more and more and more and more, and that's what health is like, for sure. It's, you really dive into one aspect of health and you master it, and then that opens up a crack, a sliver into another aspect of health that you know nothing about, and then you start going down that trail, and then you end up coming all the way back around to where you started with all this other information, and then another sliver opens up, and then you're like over there. You're constantly in this state of like, where are we going?
Yeah. And what will I find next?
And you just sometimes people get really, 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 really good at one thing, and they only do that one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then other times you see people who just know so much, and you say, well, what's your thing? And they don't even know how to respond. They're like, it just depends what we got in front of us. That's my thing. So this whole brain conversation is just like, it's just like we're only even gonna just scratch the surface of the reality of what's going on here, right? And if we're gonna talk about brain health, I've been telling people all week long, like, hey, classes on your brain. And people, what do you think everyone says?
Oh.
Hey, we're gonna talk about your brain.
Yeah.
Really? I should come. I'm like, you probably should come.
Yeah.
I should come. I'm like, yeah. What do you think people say when I tell them that class is on chiropractic? Eh,
Yeah. Because they come here so they don't need to know anymore.
I guess.
He's gonna.
It's just rather interesting. Okay? This whole keto is like, it's just these classes that we've been teaching on keto, you'll fill a whole room up with people who want to learn about keto.
Because it's a thing right now.
And
Recognizing.
the truth behind it all is really where I want to focus. The truth in it, it's kind of sad. Okay? I mean, I teach people keto because I know that it works. And I know the science and the chemistry behind it. And that's good. And I want people to get on board with that. And the only reason that I could fill a room of keto people is because they're just looking for something to grab a hold of, right? And when I go to and I do these keto classes, it's interesting because lots of the people who show up have chiropractors, and they say, oh yeah, I get adjusted. I'm like, okay, great. Well, not that it matters to me, but I say, well, who's your chiropractor? And they go, shoot, I can't think of his name or her name. And I go, have you been adjusted lately? Yeah, I go in for my 2-time-a-year alignment. And I'm like, okay. So really, it's kind of saddens me a little bit because, they were on it to chiropractic because they were missing something in their life and they needed a solution. People don't come to the chiropractor because they're in pain. I've said this before. They come to the chiropractor because something that they want in life they can't have because they're in pain. Because you can take a pain pill and make any pain go away. But when you wake up in the morning, it's back and it's limiting you from picking up your grandkids. Or it's limiting you from going for a walk. That's what people want to do, is they want to be healthy. So the whole, I didn't come off topic, but the whole keto thing, I'm telling you this because it's exciting, because it's in right now. But if you only do that and you don't do anything else, you're always going to be searching for the next thing. So we want to be searchers, and we want to take the information that we get, that we've become knowledgeable about, so it can change our life, and keep doing it. So I always tell people, don't replace this for that. Add this and keep that and keep everything else. So I'm just really, like, tiny bit, I'm just going to talk a little bit about supplementation and how to take care of your brain. But I'm not really going to get into it. But I'm just going to tell you, do this and that and this and that, and you do all these things, and now you've tipped the scales so far that you've actually started to heal your brain and stimulate your brain. Make sense? You know, so many times I meet people and they'll say, oh yeah, I used to do fish oils and I stopped. Or I go over to like one of my friend's house, and the supplements that I gave them I paid, like, it's not free, like I still had to pay a lot for them. I just gave them to them as a gift. 6 months later, I go over there and those supplements are in the refrigerator. I'm like, look at them, they're like expired, you know, like from a year ago, they're still there. I'm like, you have to take this stuff to work, you know? You have to get adjusted on a regular basis for it to work. You can't just get your one alignment. You have to brush your teeth every day for it to work. You got to train your brain like a consistency and give the brain the fuel that it needs for it to work. I think it's absolutely mind-boggling to me. One of the most amazing aspects of being a doctor is that when people show up, I can't believe that that their body actually still works.
I was wondering about that here a while back.
You know, it proves the resiliency of the cells in your body from creation. It baffles me. When people show up and I know how toxic their lives are, I can't believe that the cells are actually still communicating and that their brain has anything left, and that they're even standing upright sometimes. You know, took an x-ray of a guy, and his hip was so destroyed, I referred him out immediately. I said, you don't need chiropractic, you need a surgeon. I've never seen a degenerative hip that bad. And the guy walked in here on 2 feet, not really complaining that much. I'm just like, holy smokes, I cannot believe that this guy's even standing up. And not to mention that, but he's doing manual physical labor every day. Okay? So, perception, I'm getting back on track here. I want everyone to just think about your perception of yourself and your health. And trust me, that determines everything. So we're going to talk philosophy for just a second. Here's a prime example of perception, how it completely skews and alters your brain. Okay? Stanford University took a group of 12 master's students going through one of their master programs. Okay? Maybe on Stanford University. And they took white wine and they dyed it red with tasteless food dye. Okay? And they interviewed all these grad students, and they, asked them if they knew anything about wine. Yeah, I love wine. Okay, every single one of those students thought that they were drinking red wine. You sure I'm going?
Yeah.
So they gave them white wine and they dyed it red. Okay, but we know that was completely different. So then they did it again. They went and they took a whole bunch of what you'd say sommeliers. You know what a sommelier is? So dozens of snobby professional wine tasters.
Oh, okay.
Okay? These are not, average Joes drinking $2 chuck. These are guys that are drinking really, really high-end wine. They can tell you the region of the world the wine came from by taste alone. So these are wine snobs, like the best of the best. They
Wine
did this
connoisseurs.
wine connoisseurs. And they did the same experiment. Every single one of them thought that they were drinking red wine. And it's like, if you put red wine and white wine next to each other, I don't drink much wine at all. They taste completely different. Yeah? You would explain the taste, the flavor, the smells of red wine completely different than white wine. And every single one of these people missed it. Okay? The next step to the story is they took these students in these different groups and they put down 2 bottles of wine. A $10 bottle of wine and a $100 bottle of wine. A $100 bottle of wine, that's some expensive stuff.
Yes.
And they switched the price tags. And they just put it in front of them and they did a really cool study to see their interaction, their mood, their relationship with the wine, their conversation, the levels of elation that they were experiencing. They switched the price tag, and every single time the experience that the drinker had on the cheap wine with the $100 price tag on it was greater.
It's perception.
Mm-hmm.
It's all perception, right? And the only reason I'm starting and bringing this up is because that's how we are with our health. It's true. For good and for bad. The power of the brain controls everything. Our experiences, our relationships, and it's very, very powerful. Agreed?
Oh, yeah.
So I bring this up to people, and I talk about this a lot when I'm talking in the community because everyone has in their mind a perception for what it is that we're doing here. And the whole community, trust me, they have a perception of what happens in a chiropractic office. Agreed? And what I've learned a couple of different things, okay? Number one, people don't want to be told what to do. I know this because I tell people what I think they ought to do and they still give me a kickback. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's human nature. Like, I understand the psychology of this. People do not want to be told what to do. And number two is people love to learn and they love to become smarter. Everyone wants to be the person that they go, oh yeah, Cherie, she's really smart. Nobody wants to hear someone say, oh yeah, they're from Sagertown. That's a town near me, right? Nobody wants that. So those are 2 things that I've learned, okay? And that's why we have classes, because people want to feel like they're becoming educated, and they want to learn, they want to be smarter, and they don't want to be told what to do, even if it's the doctor, okay?
Depends on what kind of doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Here's what I've learned with chiropractic, and I'm going to show you these supplements, but I just want to briefly explain this to you. Here's what I've learned about chiropractic, okay? It's that there's 2 things happening when those bones come out of alignment. There's an alignment issue. The bones shift and create an alignment issue, and they create a neurological issue, okay? And everyone understands alignment. Everyone knows that this is straight, this is crooked. This is straight, this is crooked. This is straight, this is crooked. When we take x-rays of people, game changer. You can take someone who denies chiropractic until they die. Deny, I don't believe in chiropractic. And you can show them one picture of their x-ray and they can become a believer in 30 seconds. Because it's a picture and they can see it. But what you can't show someone is what the nerves are doing. You can't show them neurology. You can show them all these fancy tests that we do. Too confusing. I believe that. People know an x-ray is an x-ray. It's a picture of their spine. Game changer. Okay? You can't do anything to show them that what their nerves are doing. You can hook them up to all this fancy equipment. It's really, really challenging for them. I learned that. Because this fancy equipment in here, this stuff costs more than my truck at home. Right? I drive an old truck from 2004. I paid more for that machine than I did for my truck.
I would drive one from 96.
So that one costs more than your truck too.
Yes.
And the information that thing gives me is priceless. But if I only show a patient that, not a chance they're going to understand it. You see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
But people want to be educated and they want to be smarter. And the third thing about chiropractic is there's a movement disorder. People know that when they can't wake up and bend down and put their socks on, something's wrong. That's when they'll show up here. Okay? And that's probably why all you showed up here. And that's okay. Remember, people want to be smarter and they want to have an idea of what's going on. And that's where we get to really evolve this conversation. Okay? So up here on my screen, now that we're talking about movement, 80% of the activity of the central nervous system is determined and derived from mechanoreceptors. That's a fancy word, mechanoreceptors. But what that is along the spine, there are these fancy little organs that are called mechanoreceptors. And you see 80% of the baseline activity of the central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord, comes from whatever these things along your spine are telling your central nervous system to do. Okay? And here's my example. If anyone has ever had a bad day where they lay down on the couch and they don't do anything, or they go out and have too many cocktails the night before and get hungover, at the end of laying on the couch all day, do you have more energy or less?
Less.
Does your brain feel on point and sharp, like you want to sit down and study something, or does it feel completely wasted and toast?
Wasted.
And that's exactly what happens when these mechanoreceptors are not firing. And clinically and scientifically, we know that when we take an adjustment in a subluxation out of your spine, it gets those things firing again. And we know that because we can show on these brain scans a brain that is 5 minutes before an adjustment, and then we can show a brain 10 minutes after, or 5 minutes after an adjustment, and we can see those centers of the brain start to come back to life. Which brings me to the second thing up here. Afferent input to the cerebellum exceeds efferent fibers by a ratio of 40:1. Here's what that means, okay? The amount of information going up to the brain is 40 times more than the information coming out of the brain. So I just told you that 80% of brain activity is now determined by these scientists. Okay, this was just published in a journal in the year 2000. By neurologists are telling us that 80% of your brain activity is determined by the mechanoreceptors along your spine. That's mind-shattering to me. Okay? And then they say here in the Journal of Neurology, not that much later, that you have 40 times more input up to the brain than you do out of the brain. And you guys know that every organ in your body has to send information to the brain. And the brain determines what that organ needs, wants, or desires. And then the brain figures out what to do with all those, let's just say 40 signals. Boom. It interprets and codes 40 signals, and then it sends one signal back down to the liver and says, do this. This is what we know now. It's just mind-shattering. And then the pancreas says 40 signals, boom, Thea's eating an apple. And the brain takes 40 different signals and says, hey, produce this enzyme now. Okay? And the body says, oh my gosh, we're in pain. And the brain says, produce this hormone. This is crazy. That's what your brain's interpreting, and that's the role of the brain. Trust me when I say this. If you have decreased signals coming from the organs of your body to your brain, the brain can only make a decision based upon whatever it's getting. So if it's not getting the proper signals from the organs through the nerve, through that opening where your nerves come out, back to the spine along the mechanoreceptors, up through the spinal column to the brain, there's a lot happening. Just to do this, there's a lot happening. Okay? And when I learn this over and over and over again, I go, oh, I forgot that. Okay? So a new patient comes into my office and says, Doc, I have so much neck pain, it's coming down here, I need adjusted. All I want to do is help them. But then when the pain's gone and they never learned this, then they're going to go right back into that cycle, right? And if we teach someone this, we can help them be healthy for the rest of their life, right? My example for that is I got a mom who comes in. I can tell you lots of general stories about my experiences without saying names. A mom that comes in has got, sciatic pain going down her leg all the way down to her foot. And she's pregnant. And she gets adjusted 3 or 4 times. And thanks, doc, I'm good. Okay, cool. Well, she wasn't around long enough for me to teach her what I need to teach her. Remember, nobody wants to be told what to do. That's why we get in fights with our spouses. Because we forget that. Right? Nobody wants to be told what to do. So if she misses that message, when she knows that she has a pinched nerve here, shooting pain down her leg, she knows that she needs chiropractic. But what she forgets or never learned is that her kid needs it too, because this proves to us and tells us that that kid's dealing with the same thing you're dealing with. It's just that you've been dealing with it for 35, 40 years. Kid's only been dealing with it for 6. So the kid hasn't had the symptoms to show up, but we know that the kid's brain's not working the way it's designed to. We know it's not working the way that it's designed to. So the neurology of the brain is what's most important. Okay? And I just think that this research that I just grabbed for you will change your perception of your adjustments. Because sometimes, you know, you ladies were here, there was a lot going on the last hour of the day. Like, you know, if you get behind, or if 3 people in a row show up late, guess what? You can't catch up.
I know.
Okay? So, people say this all the time. What's going through your head when you're adjusting me? That's what's going through my head. Deanna, put those x-rays up there so I can see those x-rays so I know what your patterns are. And when the patterns are up there, I'm looking at that screen 1,000 times a day, and I know what your patterns are, and your patterns are different from everyone else's. And from sitting back there, it sometimes looks like we're doing the exact same thing to everyone. But there is nothing the same about what we're doing over here.
I imagine a lot of people probably have a lot of common same
Totally.
symptoms, you know?
And that's what's going through my head.
Yeah.
So when I find one of those bones that's out of alignment, sometimes for like 30 or 40 years, like we just talked about,
Yeah.
so holy smokes! I said, that thing's probably been stuck for 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't think it, I know it. And what I'm thinking afterward is, oh, not only is that bone not stuck again, but those mechanoreceptors just turned on like a Christmas tree, and now your brain's going to start getting thousands of more input signals than it had 30 seconds ago. See where I'm going with this?
Yep.
Any questions? Makes sense.
Mhm.
And this is not something that we just learned in chiropractic. It's something that we just forget to share with people. Huh. Can you just hit the, I think it maybe went to sleep or something.
My feet are always cold before I go to bed, and they were on
That's
that.
circulation.
I
Yep.
went, whoa, I don't have to wait an hour before I can go to
Got
bed,
it.
before I go to bed.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So here's my famous question that I ask sometimes out in the community, and then I'll tell you what I do for my brain. I always ask this. When I get a group of people who don't have any idea what I'm talking about, I say, would you rather have a back problem, or would you rather have a brain problem? And sometimes I open up my talks like that. Have we talked about this before?
Mhm. When you teach
Almost
yourself.
always, what do you think people say? Back.
Mhm.
Nobody wants a brain problem. And as I'm sitting there and I see, 30, 40 people raise their hand, I just take note of that, because every single time this happens, this has never not happened. And I explain to them what I just explained to you, and then I ask them the same question. I say, now, would you rather have a brain problem or a back problem? And the really smart people in the group say what? It's the same thing.
Sure. So,
Because your brain sends a signal down through your spinal column, and your spinal column essentially is brain tissue. It's the same. And if you got a back problem, you got a brain problem. It's not possible to have a subluxation or a pinched nerve down here or trouble breathing or a kinked neck and not have a brain problem. Because when we understand what's actually happening, we know that they're the same thing. Because we know that the mechanoreceptors in your spine are responsible for 80% of brain activity on a regular basis. 80% of brain activity. If you got a nerve kink here and the neck stuck like this, like most people do when they show up, we know that their brain's not working right. Okay? So my last story that I'm going to share with you is this. This is not something that happened in my office, but this happened to my friend. Okay? And it really changed and this happened early on before I really got this big picture. I was like just graduating school. He's telling me, a group of us, a story where he is taking care of a dad, okay? And dad's got headaches, bad headaches, okay? And working on him. Guy comes in with this, I've had a headache about a week. Oh, cool. Keep working on him, keep adjusting him. And guy comes back in a month later and goes, Doc, I haven't had a headache in a month. It's like, oh, cool, interesting, right? So the dad's with his little kid, okay? This is a true story, by the way. And the chiropractor, my friend, he looks at the kid and goes, hey, what have you noticed different about your dad since he's been getting adjusted? And he goes, Dad stopped hitting Mom. Right? And the reason I'm telling you that story is because this guy was in so much pain and suffering, and his brain was, this is a story for the brain class. His brain was not working properly. And once he started getting adjusted and started getting that power back onto his brain, it changed everything. Now, I've had people come in here that were clinically depressed and suicidal that have pulled me aside and said, I'm having, good thoughts all of a sudden since getting adjusted. I adjusted one guy one time who was practically in tears. He needed a whole bunch of money, didn't know where to get it. This is another story I tell people all the time. I don't know, how much money do you need? $1 million. Holy cow. Why don't I just get you adjusted? I don't know what else I can do for you because I can't give you $1 million. Guy comes back in the next day and goes, I figured out where to get the money. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. I didn't see any on the news last night. The bank. He goes, Doc, when I got adjusted, I left here and I had this moment of clarity and I knew exactly what I needed to do. I went down to the bank, told them what I needed, and they gave me the money. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
So don't think for a second that these adjustments aren't going to help your brain work better. Okay? Now, you all know that I get adjusted 1 to 2 times a week. I don't always need to get adjusted, but typically I do because of my job and my lifestyle. Okay? This is something pretty cool. Now, I'm not promoting any of this stuff, but one of my friends just dropped this off to me. He's a doctor in Bend, and this is his company, and he's launching this program, okay? And I think it's pretty cool because he designed this as a brain health packet. I'm going to give this to you to look at because,
I bet I know who the doctor is, so.
Do you know Dr. Jeff?
No, different doctor.
Okay. So this is something that he's been working on and designing. So interesting, I'm going through here and I'm looking at what he chose and why he chose to put these in here. So he sells this and is launching this new, it's actually kind of nicely done. He's selling this as brain health, right? And he's a chiropractor. He's retired, but he's a chiropractor. And now he dabbles around with all this fun stuff. Okay? So one thing that I do every day is I take some form of healthy fats. Okay? Bang for your buck, if you're going to add one thing into your supplements or into your diet, healthy fats all day long. Okay? Lots of times I'm taking fish oils. Your body needs these fats because it's what your brain is made out of. Okay? The worst thing we can do for ourselves is take a cholesterol lowering medication because it just destroys your body of all its good fats. Not to mention it blocks the production of CoQ10, which is really important for brain and cardiovascular health. Okay, so CoQ10 is one of those ones that you want to remember. So I take fish oils almost every day. I eat keto. I'm in a cycle right now where I'm not doing keto, but I'm doing some minimal healthy grains. And then I'll cycle back on to keto, which is, the healthy fat diet, food for your brain. Okay? When I'm on keto, I'm not taking fish oils because I'm getting so much healthy fats. But when I cycle off of keto, I'm still doing lots of healthy fats, but I go back on my fish oils. So I cycle this stuff on and off, but I always am keeping a reminder of what my body needs. So if I'm not getting it from my diet, I'm getting it from supplementation. If I'm getting it from supplementation, I'm still trying to get it from my diet. Because I tell people, call me crazy, but you should get most of the things your body needs from your diet. We know that sometimes we can't do that because our food source is so depleted. Like, I was talking to Jeff, these B vitamins and magnesium, our soil is so depleted of these things that we're not getting it from our soil, from our vegetables. So magnesium, of course, is another good one to have for brain health. Okay? Also helps you sleep better at night. It's good for your muscles. The B vitamins are really good because they help with neurotransmitters. So the synapses that are happening in the brain needs B vitamins. So B vitamins are really critical and important. And a lot of times you can be getting this from your multivitamin. So you might not need to add a brain supplement just to get going here. You just might need to take a closer look at your daily vitamins or your supplements, okay? Make sure that it has these things in there. Neurosyn is something that I use all of the time, and I use this a lot when I started my detox journey. I'm not currently on this, but I cycle on and off of this. I know that you really love this product, maybe even more than I do, because you understand the nutrition for the brain at a high level. But these are products that are designed to help keeping the brain functioning well. Okay? The other one is, do you ever use this brain supplement from Systemic Formulas? I don't have any in right now.
I have some.
I use it a lot. I give it to a lot of my patients. Okay? So especially if you're having a cognitive decline, if you're having cognitive decline, not only do you need to be on high amounts of high-fat diet and fish oils, but you also probably need some of these herbs and these different products that are designed to increase the neurosynapses in the brain and upregulate what's happening upstairs. Okay? So if you have any sort of cognitive decline, if you're really stressed out, if you're neurologically taxed, if you're going through periods of depression or stress, if you've ever suffered a concussion or you're currently recovering from a concussion. So these are the indicators the brain might need a little extra support in conjunction with chiropractic. Okay? I even go as far as when people go up to the mountain and they wipe out and hit their head. And they're like, I'm like, did you feel like you were concussed? I don't know. If they say I don't know, they were. Generally. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of got rattled. Well, you're probably concussed to some degree. My whiplash patients, I talk to them all the time about this stuff. In a car, doc, I was in a car accident last week. Okay? Take some x-rays. If the x-rays changed, your brain changed. And I've had people get hit 5 miles per hour. X-rays change. Yeah, your brain changed too. Okay? So whiplash patients need to probably have a couple of months of really upregulating what's going on upstairs.
Anything that jars your body.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I follow my daughter. My daughter eats a really high-fat diet. She eats food that I see other kids, my nephews won't even touch it. My daughter will take down a can of olives and sardines like it's her job. My nephews won't even look at an olive. Okay, so the reason my daughter, and she's on DHA and different fish oil products, the reason she's on it is because you ever see how many times that kid falls down? Her brain's constantly being insulted with all different types of traumas and injuries, and her brain is developing.
Yeah.
Her brain is developing, right? We know that the blood-brain barrier, the blood goes into the brain, that thing doesn't fully form, so people are saying up to age 6 now. Okay? So, you guys can check these products out. I don't want to throw stuff at people, because I know that people have a limited budget for what they can invest right now in their health. So, I tell people there's all this different stuff we can do, and you slowly start incorporating this stuff into your life, in your body, in your health and wellness, start tipping on the scales towards vitality. And we spend more time on vitality and less time on breakdown, sickness, and disease, and 5 years go by and you go, I feel like a new person. But it didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't a 30-day program. It was everything you've been doing for 5 years. Okay? So, I just randomly, my friend Jeff dropped that off. I just randomly brought it in to look at it. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay? So, why not learn how to take care of the most vital organ in your body, your brain?
So how many different kinds of oils that are good for your brain? Can you take various ones, even if you're taking one, take two or three different
Oh,
ones?
yeah.
And it's not gonna clash in there
No.
somewhere?
No. As long as you're eating, if
Like
you're not eating tons and tons, if you're not mixing all of these good healthy fats with tons of inflammatory
Stuff.
foods, I mean, if you're doing that, it kind of mucks up the water a little bit.
Well, I don't
But if you're
either.
really tipping the scales and favoring all those good healthy fats, load it up. I mean, I use all of those oils that I have on a not all of them every day on a regular basis, but I'll go home and I'll probably have 2 tablespoons of one of Andreas's oil, and I'm not joking.
Mhm.
All right. Last night I made my own salad dressing, and I probably had 3 or 4 tablespoons of oil in the salad dressing, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I'm not heavy loading, all of these fish oils on days where I'm getting all these other really good saturated fats. But I do always keep in mind that, these omegas and these DHAs and DHEAs that are coming from fish oils are really yummy and nutritious for the brain.
Yeah.
So,
Because I've never really known if you should be taking like fish oil and coconut oil and MCT oil, and if it's all right to take them all together at the same time, because
Sure.
like cod liver oil,
Yeah.
avocado
this is
oil.
this is cod liver oil right here.
Mhm.
Cod liver is really high in vitamin B,
Mhm.
and it's synergistically.
Because what I've been
Has
doing
a
is
really
I've got
nice-
cod liver oil, I've got MCT
Yeah.
oil, I've got coconut oil, so, I've got this big thing of coconut oil, so I haven't been taking the other stuff because I wanted to finish that first before I started something else, and then every time I think about it,
Good.
and I come in here and I think about asking you about it, then I don't ask you about it.
You're doing everything right. You're doing everything right.
I
Just
eat at least a half avocado almost every day, or an avocado every
Good.
day.
stay in these
Yeah.
conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
Healthy people. Some of these people say, "Doc, I'm going crazy." I say, well, healthy people are always trying to stay healthy. That means that healthy people are always asking questions. They're always looking at different stuff, but they're always keeping one thing stable, and that is, we understand that certain things are non-negotiable with health.
Yeah.
Okay, someone who's really healthy is always focusing on some form of exercise.
Yeah.
Someone who's always really healthy is always focusing on making sure their body's getting the right foods. Someone who's really healthy is always getting adjusted and understands why they get adjusted. So, adding to this stuff is the key.
Yeah.
And trust me, I go through periods of time where I am like a ninja with something for like 3 months. And then I kind of shift a little bit, and then like 12 months later, I'll hear one of my mentors talking about, echinacea. And I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
man,
forgot
I was
about
on
that.
the best. I was getting the most excellent potent form of echinacea, and I was using it every day. And I don't know, I just kind of transitioned, but it's always there.
A lot of foods like that, or supplements like that, I go through cycles. Like echinacea, I'll start taking it late August into September, along that when it starts getting cold, and I'll incorporate more ginger into my system. But I will weed it out late spring, early summer, because it's too hot to be taken during the summer.
Thanks.
Just shift through different things.
Yeah.
We can all do that.
Do you know how to find or how to tell if your echinacea's